This week, we welcome Vivek Ramachandran. He's the founder and CEO of Pentester Academy. Talk about their AttackDefense Labs platform and how the Pentester Academy is helping thousands of customers from government agencies to Fortune 500 companies. In the second segment, we welcome back, none other than Bryson Bort, founder and CEO of Scythe. Talk about purple teaming, top attack simulation scenarios, and testing command and control channels. In the security news, how to prevent a cyber war with Russia, the case against knee-jerk installations of Windows patches, U.S. customs even, and border protection data breach is the result of a supply chain attack, and a phishing scam that hacks two-factor authentication. All that and more on this episode of Paul's Security Weekly.
This is Security Weekly, for security professionals, by security professionals. Broadcasting live from G-Unit Studios in Rhode Island, it's the show where exploits run wild, packets aren't the only things getting sniffed, and the cocktails flow steady. It's Paul's Security Weekly. NetSparker, the developers of desktop and cloud-based web application security scanners that enable you to automatically identify vulnerabilities in your web applications and web services. NetSparker scanners employ a unique and dead-accurate vulnerability scanning engine that automatically verifies vulnerabilities with their proof of concept. For more information, visit them on the web at netsparker.com or email at contact@netsparker.com. Is your IT team ready to face the next implementation or upgrade? Do you have a pool of talented team members who are trained and ready to support your organization's growth? The right IT skills development platform can get you past the IT skills gap. With training content that's so engaging, some even call it binge-worthy learning, your team will watch and learn more with IT Pro TV. Get a free team trial of IT Pro TV today. Visit securityweekly.com/IT Pro TV. Thinkst Canary makes high-fidelity honeypots that set up in minutes and requires no ongoing administration. Attackers moving silently on your network advertise their presence by tripping over them. There's a good reason Thinkst Canaries are deployed and loved by some of the best security teams in the world. They're inexpensive, they're simple, and they work. For more information, go to securityweekly.com/canary or direct message @ThinkstCanary on Twitter.
Come on down to Bob's High Colonics where we will set you up with a Paul. That's Fresca, coffee, and bourbon all mixed together for a hot, spicy, fizzy piece of goodness that's as smooth as Paul himself.
Welcome to Paul's Security Weekly, smooth, fizzy goodness with some spice added. It's episode 609, recorded June 20th, 2019, right here in G-Unit Studios in Rhode Island. To my left, none other than Dr. Doug White.
Hello.
What's going on, dude?
You know, Python, Docker, malware.
A Star Wars Rick and Morty?
Yes, it is. It's Mr. Meeseeks assisting a stormtrooper in the impossible task of trying to teach the stormtrooper to shoot the Wookiee.
Oh, my God. There's going to be lots of Mr. Meeseeks in that. They're not going to go away, ever.
No. It's just an endless cycle of Mr. Meeseeks finally pulling out the small amount of hair that Mr. Meeseeks actually has. So.
But why does Obi-Wan say the blast marks are too accurate for Imperial? I don't understand.
Yeah, he had wisdom beyond his years.
Too accurate for sand people. I don't understand.
Or he was drunk.
How horrible must sand people be at shooting? Right? Have you ever thought about that?
Yeah.
You appreciated my tweet on Rick and Morty where I said if the TV shows Fringe and Married with Children were to have a love child, it would be called Rick and Morty.
Oh, that was brilliant.
Thank you.
I really enjoyed it. I laughed out loud, literally. It wasn't just an LOL. I actually laughed.
Literally laughed. On the lines via Skype, Mr. Jeff Mann is here with us. Jeff, welcome.
Pleasure to be here as always, Paul.
Nice to have you. Mr. Lee Neely's holding his wine.
Yes, I'm happy to be here, ready for another fun evening.
There's no whining on this show, Lee. You can drink wine.
Okay,
totally
I'll drink
acceptable.
it.
You can drink it, yes. Wine is good. Alrighty, register for our upcoming webcast with SaltStack, ISC Squared, and Viavi Solutions by going to securityweekly.com/webcast. You should do that. Today's webcast I thought was really awesome. We chatted a little bit about the right ways and wrong ways to use threat intelligence, and then Tarek from Domain Tools showed us how to use What was that tool called? Cap something. I should know this. He went through some. Hold on. I can tell you what it is because I have the slides right here. Cap Tipper. Tipper's awesome.
One.
Have you used Cap Tipper before?
I have not used it, but I actually read about it. Yeah,
you give it a PCAP file and it carves things out and lets you cross-reference.
All the goodies out.
It was awesome. So if you want to see more awesome stuff, go to securityweekly.com/webcasts and get on that. I think there is one more announcement in here. No, there isn't. That was it. Vivek Ramachandran. Did I say that right?
Yes.
Okay, good. Is here with us. Those of you who don't know, I mean, Vivek he's a star. He's a star. You're building training at Pentester Academy. Vivek, welcome back to the show.
Yeah, thank you so much, Paul. Thank you for inviting me. It's a pleasure to be on the show again. I think 6 years last time I was on the show. So
now, Vivek, is that short for something, or is that your actual first name?
No. It's just Vivek. Yeah, Vivek is my name.
It's just because I work with someone from India, almost 20 years ago now, right? And his name was Raghavendra Ragakrishna. I think that was his first name. And when he said it, like no one could say it. He's like, you call me Raghu, and that was his nickname, Raghu. I felt bad that we couldn't pronounce his full first name, but he was like, no, it's fine.
Well, you did pretty good there.
He's like, you call me Raghu. Oh yeah, because
I've been practicing for 19 years. Yeah.
I made it a point to learn how to pronounce his full name.
It's on his wall in there.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm very impressed, Paul, because you mess up simple names like Smith when we have guests on the show.
Well, yeah, if it's a simple name, I underestimate it, and I usually mess it up. Mm-hmm. So Vivek, what have you been up to? It sounds like have you created like a new company in the past 6 years? I want to hear all about it.
Yeah, so I think the last time we were speaking, I had just started Pentester Academy, which was, just a collection of courses I'd already made for Security Tube, putting everything together. So I think, in the last 6 years, what we did was we really expanded that library. We created a lot of courseware, and almost the last 1 year, we've been working on this custom lab platform that we've created called AttackDefense, so that now you could do all the labs online. The key difference, of course, is, typically when you look at labs, then we all connect via VPN, but AttackDefense is completely browser-based. So you could actually launch these environments and jump into, your web browser, get a Kali VM, and immediately start attacking targets and all that. So, yeah, I mean, from a product line perspective, we've expanded the company. Now, actually, we have a whole team working on things. So it's been an exciting journey.
Vivek, how does that work? How do you get a VM inside of a browser like that?
Yeah, so what we actually do is, we deploy the entire network of, Docker containers or KVM-based machines. And then we have a gateway machine. And on that, we end up running actually guacamole containers. So then guacamole automatically ends up connecting over RDP to, whether your Windows VM or your Docker container, and then exports the entire GUI back to the browser. It's all over HTML5 and WebSockets.
Oh, interesting. Because there's a website that lets you try out like any Linux distribution. I'd venture to guess they're probably using the same, if not similar, technology.
Could be, yeah. They throw a VM container.
So there are a lot of these, browser-based HTML5 kind of export platforms available. But I think, guacamole from the Apache Foundation is the best. So we've kind of tinkered around with it, optimized it quite a lot for low bandwidth circumstances. And based on that, I think, it actually works pretty well. Nobody's... in the beginning, a lot of people did have an apprehension moving from, complete VPN to a browser-based solution. But now our customers actually love it.
Yeah, it's distrotest.net.
Yeah,
it's pretty cool.
What do you need at the student end? Just a browser?
That's it.
Because I'm having a flashback to a class I was conducting, and the instructions were to bring a machine so we could run a VM. And somebody showed up with an iPad. In your scenario, they'd win. They could do it.
Yeah,
crazy.
Yeah. And as architectures are getting more and more complicated, it's probably impossible to simulate everything, inside VMware or anything locally for that matter. So that's where I think something like this is really helpful.
Is that all sandboxed by the container, or is it sandboxed by the browser, or how is it contained?
Yeah,
or is it running remotely?
Basically, what we do is we deploy everything in the form of a container network, and that network itself is like in a pod. We don't use Kubernetes. We have our own little orchestrator just so that it's very optimized for our purpose. And that way we kind of create an isolated environment on a per student basis.
Okay.
So the browser is just kind of a dumb forwarder, kind of talks to Guacamole, and Guacamole ends up talking to the entire network behind it.
And it took you a year to develop that?
The platform itself, I think the first version was around 3 to 4 months. And then the team which created like all the challenges in-house, we have like 1,100 lab exercises.
Wow.
So, right from, network pen testing to forensics to IoT to whatnot. That actually took us around 8 to 9 months to develop. Of course, the platform is still an ongoing work.
Of course.
Do you have an academic license so I can run it in my lab?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have a lot of, academic institutions we even give out like complete free access to. And we also have a community lab section. So you could just go to attackdefense.com, log in and start playing the free community labs.
Okay.
If you're a school, reach out to us and we'll actually give you a free account. Yeah.
I'm a school.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome.
I got my .edu.
So, Vivek, what are some of the more popular modules on your platform today?
Yeah, so I think, Metasploit always rules. So, given most of the people coming in are, beginning to intermediate, and everyone loves to get MetaPredator. So the CTFs and the Metasploit labs are very popular.
Mm-hmm.
And after that, I think the next most popular one is a recon section, because we've added like all new components like memcache and NoSQL servers and, distributed queues and whatnot. So that I think is very popular as well. And recently we've also started doing RedTeam labs. I don't know if you've seen our RedTeam labs on Active Directory and Windows Red Teaming created by Nikhil. So that is something which is getting a lot of traction in the industry, especially for enterprise users.
And so what's the Red Team lab? Does it walk people like from start to finish through a Red Team exercise?
So we have actually 2 different labs. One is the Active Directory Attack Defense Lab. So that actually takes you through all the basics of, different Active Directory attacks and how to go through them and all that. And then the Red Team lab is more of a challenge lab. So we have like a full-blown scenario of, medium-sized network, and people have to figure out once they get a foothold machine, how to kind of slowly go through it, through the whole network and, get more and more goodies.
And is there training in courseware that's coupled with the labs, every single lab?
Yes. So we have Active Directory Attack Defense course as well as a Red Teaming course. I think together it's almost 22 hours created by, Nikhil Mittal. He's our Black Hat trainer as well, doing Active Directory Attack Defense. So it's very detailed right from the start, starts with the basics, goes all the way to advanced techniques.
If I had a pen test team, I would have every single person, regardless of skill level, go through that class.
Yeah, I think so. Can you pull things into it as well? Can you pull in other like targets or other devices, or is it just so it's totally contained?
So currently it's totally contained, but what we are doing is we are working on a lab platform where you can literally drag and drop different components that you would like to see, so that you can customize your own lab experience.
Wow.
That's awesome.
That's really awesome. That's so cool.
Because we have a lot of people kind of complain that you always get that one monolithic lab, and every student has to look at it no matter what their skill level. And that's where we are trying to kind of create your own customize your lab experience thing, where you could just drag and drop and maybe see more of Kerberos attacks rather than doing basic Active Directory enumeration, or let's say have like more of Java servers in there if that's interesting to you and whatnot. So
and just
that should be available in a couple of months.
And tweaking it around, regularly, because at least for academics, people will very quickly develop a solution to any problem and post it, and then it's half the people. I mean, I know that's ridiculous, and most of us are going, "Why would you do that?" But people do.
Yeah, exactly. And that is why what we are trying to do is create a library of different attacks and kind of keep it updated. We have an in-house team of 5 people, literally, whose full-time task is actually to create new labs, so that we can keep up with the demand, and at the very same time make sure that we add all the new stuff which is happening.
So this is a virtual cyber range. I mean,
Yeah.
it's just a very, very portable kind of cyber range, like you've seen people build these giant, monolithic,
But modular
hardware.
too, it sounds like.
Yeah, no, I mean, but we've seen these that had modules. I've seen one that had a module. It's just like it's big, it's a big piece of hardware that you have to set up, and it's very rigid. And this sounds a lot more versatile than that.
Vivek, when I sign up for the labs and I get in, do I get an attack machine that I can like copy and paste code in and all that stuff that can attack the other systems?
Absolutely. So basically, when you log into AttackDefense and run any of the labs, we either give you a Kali terminal in the browser, so this can be a regular Unix shell. The other would be you can actually get a full-blown Kali VM as well, where literally you have the whole GUI and all of that. And it literally feels like you're on the desktop because we end up co-locating the server closest to where you are. So I think you really don't feel like you're using a new platform or there's any learning curve, because literally you can get your Kali or your Ubuntu VM.
And you can copy and paste and all that stuff in between it?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So there is a different shortcut key you'll have to use than Control-C, Control-V, simply because it's an HTML environment. So, but once you know those shortcut keys, it's pretty much you can copy and paste in and out.
That's awesome.
I hate this so much. Just because
it sounds like what you've been trying to build for
all
a long
these like
time.
10,000 hours I've spent building these things and cobbling stuff together, and then it's like, oh, here's this beautiful system, and it's all virtualized, and you don't need to buy like $100,000 worth of server equipment to set it up. It's just kind of like,
well, I mean, if you gave Vivek like $100,000 a year, if it's more than that, please correct me. He'd probably just license you the platform.
Probably, yeah, but I don't have that, so. But that's frustrating. It's great.
I think he said $1 million, Doug.
$1 million.
Yeah, whatever.
Well, hang on. I'll get my credit card. Can you take that over the air, please? I'm going to read the code. I'm going to read the number to you right now.
So the problem is there are so many prank calls happening from India that if I do call you, you'll probably feel that I'm probably trying to get your credit card number.
I always give it out anyway. It doesn't matter.
So you bring up a very interesting point. What we are trying to also do is see if eventually, maybe in a couple of months, we can actually license out our platform to training institutes around the world. So, if you're running your own training shop and you don't have time to set up all of this, you can just spin up a custom portal for you and your students, and you can start using AttackDefense as an extension of your, existing training setup.
That's awesome.
So I have a silly question.
Good, Jeff.
Yeah, and maybe it's just some brain farting. You're calling it attack defense, but it sounds like you're teaching people how to attack. Can you expound on that a little bit more?
So we actually have defense-based lab as well. So, if you kind of log into the AttackDefense platform, you'll actually find that we are looking at defense. We have forensics, we have regular forensics, we have IoT forensics. We are also now putting in a little bit of blue teaming labs as well, so that you start seeing logs from different servers come in, and then you have an ELK platform where you can start sifting through those logs and finding what is happening on your network. So we call it attack defense because eventually the vision is that you have equal number of labs for both red as well as blue teaming exercises. Of course, we've kind of started more with attack because that's what people love doing. People love rooting boxes. But if you log in, you'll actually see there's a lot of defense ones as well.
Is there a way, or have you thought about a way to sort of allow for a customer and organization to, basically build within this platform, a copy of their production environment or a copy of their enterprise, or at least bits and pieces of it? So, rather than you guys just have a bunch of stuff in it already, but I'm thinking of a particular customer that I have, and I would love to be able to set up a mock environment that models what they have, and then demonstrate how easy it would be for them to be compromised.
I love it, Jeff.
So that is actually a fantastic point, and this is something we've just started doing as a pilot. This is actually for a DevOps team, and what they really wanted was that they have this. So this is a medium-sized startup, and they are going to launch, their whole new platform to the rest of the world. So they are having us model their entire development stack on our custom platform, And then they literally want to open this up to the rest of the world, almost like a little deception network online, so that people can come in, attack, their platform, and they can actually see what is happening so that they can prepare in advance for the kind of attacks or for the kind of security metrics you'll start seeing coming in through the logs when attackers are actually, attacking that platform. So yes, the vision also is that if we could go ahead and have an organization mention the different components and eventually have it drag and drop, so you could build staging environments which mirror your company's network rather than having a cyber range where you have, components you're never going to encounter.
Right.
And that's really the part where I was talking about, where creating custom labs for you and what you need, rather than giving you one plain vanilla lab where you're just forced to use it, even if that's not relevant to you.
I could give you the app that I'm working on now, but it'd be more like that damn vulnerable web app. It would fall over really fast. Once I complete all of our projects to implement security in it, that's an awesome idea, though, right? Like, why not just take the app, throw it up in that environment, and let other people test it, and you're monitoring it in the background.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. So we are actually deploying a lot of systems like PacketBeat and even custom EDRs if you want to go ahead and deploy that and see what's happening on endpoints, etc., so that you can mimic your environment even before it goes live.
Jeff?
I mean, it almost sounds like there's an application here, and I'm thinking of this because I was chatting with Casey John Ellis the other night. There might be a bug crowd type angle in here, crowdsourcing, not just the apps, not just, the newest thing you're coming out with, but actually try to, set up a mini version of a client environment and let people have at it, sort of like from a crowdsourcing perspective.
Yeah,
Exactly.
but that's also the thing about getting staffing over their privacy. They don't want anybody to know what they're doing. They don't want anybody to see it. Which, if you would let people do that, you would have fewer problems, because it's like a bug hunting environment, like on your ready to go live thing. And why not find it?
If you're
That'd be like bug bounty on steroids.
Yeah, I mean, if you're practicing good development techniques, you can totally. In fact, I just did this with our application. I was like, you know what? Drop all the tables from the database and start from scratch and see what breaks, right? And I had a lot of unit testing to do, but I've got it to the point now where you can drop everything in the database, right? The things you got to be concerned about are any API keys or passwords to your database left around in there, right? But you could totally deploy a stripped down version, of your app.
So you build a beta kind of version of your whole environment and throw it out there, and you can keep everything back you need to keep back, and just put it in there and say, go for it. Tell me what's wrong, and then you could watch it and just go, look at this. These guys ate me alive, and I really ought to do more.
Right. I mean, it could serve as a QA function too. I mean, right now in our app, you'd get a lot of internal server errors, but it can serve as a QA function too, right?
Why not?
Yeah, exactly. So the large enterprises we are talking to, the key complaint when we ask them is like, okay, what is wrong with existing, training solutions is because you have that one vanilla setup for everybody, a lot of times they have to sift through to what is relevant and what to kind of discard. And what we are trying to do is, by having this massive library of vulnerable components, we eventually hope that we literally have like the component you are using in your test bed, in your, actual deployment, so that you can now customize your lab experience. I think that's what we want to kind of move towards in the next 3 to 4 months.
It's interesting. You should also consider licensing it to instructors as well. Because I can tell you, to Lee's point, having been, SANS instructor or trainer at Black Hat, the one of the greatest challenges in producing a class is providing an environment to every student. Vivek knows. I mean, he's shaking. He said, you've done Black Hat training too, right, Vivek? That's the most difficult part. Like Lee says, students show up even though you give them the requirements beforehand. They're busy. They don't read them. I mean, okay. And they bring an iPad. I mean, maybe it's their first class, right? And they bring an iPad. And I'm trying to be nice to folks that do that. But, sometimes people bring a laptop and they don't have administrator credentials. They don't have access to plug in USB devices. They don't have access to VMware. And then the other scenario is they do, and everyone's environment is different, right? Yeah. And as great as Docker is, I can tell you what, you still have, Jack is our new developer, and we were trying to sync up our development environments. we still had to do some troubleshooting with Docker to make it work, because there's config that has to change, and that anytime there's config that has to change, there's an opportunity to introduce bugs. I've done it 1,000 times. With this platform, Vivek, it allows people to learn in such a great way without having to, take time to set up their system.
So being a hardware guy, Vivek, could I ask you a little bit about the horsepower that it takes to run this? I mean, so here let's take my this kind of thing. I mean,
what is that, like an i3?
Yeah, it's it's an i5. Give me a break.
It's a 5. Yes.
It's you have to pull start it, but it works.
4 gigs of RAM.
Yeah, but I have everything from things like this to giant VMware stacks that could run this. So
I think your server, your desktop at home is a 16-core i9.
Yeah. With 128 gigs of RAM, so that'd probably crank a pretty good model. But I'm just wondering, like, how much horsepower is this, and how does that translate? So when somebody shows up with an i5, $200 i5 compared to somebody showing up with an Alienware gaming laptop, are we? How limited are we?
So as far as the end user is concerned, literally you could run our most complicated lab even on your iPad or your tablet, and frankly, you could even run it on a phone. If you have it in you to go ahead and type things in. I don't know if I'm allowed to share my screen, but I could just show you something in like a minute.
That's a great idea, Vivek. Yeah, we want to see it.
Bring it.
Okay.
I love what you built, by the way. It's even more awesome than I was reading about, Vivek.
Yeah,
it's fantastic.
Sounds great.
Yeah, so I don't know if my
we can
screen
see
is
it.
visible.
We have a screen.
We can see it. Capture the flag.
Great. So this is basically so I'm on an extremely low bandwidth connection. So literally I'm on my phone right now using a tourist sim here in Singapore. So
is that where you live, Vivek? Do you live in Singapore?
So I was actually living in the US till November, December last year in California. Now this year we've actually started a very small office here in Singapore. So I'm kind of shuttling between California, Singapore, and India.
Gotcha. That's a lot of miles in the air.
Yeah. So this is the AttackDefense Platform. And as I was telling you guys that, we have like a ton of stuff in here. So you see like all these network recon labs with, NoSQL databases, distributed queues and whatnot, traffic analysis, web app CVEs. This is the community lab section, which you can kind of go ahead and launch and play, which is completely free. I'll show you the ongoing lab. So I've already started like 2 labs. And here is the Kali lab I was kind of talking about. So let's say we go into the lab itself. And this is a simple CTF. I just want to show you like how the interface looks like. The simple CTF, this is you. Here is the switch. It also allow you to kind of like wiggle it around a bit. And once you start the lab and click on the link, what you'd find is, voila, you're actually inside a GUI system. And this is a full-blown Kali. And you have like the complete GUI system available to you right here. So you could go ahead, launch a terminal. So let's say you're going to launch a terminal, and now you can run nmap and all of that, just like you would on a regular system. You could even go ahead and launch like your regular GUI tools, run all of them. So let's say we run, as an example, Wireshark or Burp or any of those. You could do that as well. So let me go ahead, launch Wireshark.
See, now I just want to license the lab for myself.
No, Vivek. I know. I'm like, okay,
now I just want to. I mean, for all the technical segments that I do in webcasts,
think about
that for.
If
I often am messing around with VMs all the time and Docker containers all the time. How awesome would it be to just let my web browser, I can go do?
I mean, I've seen just spending 4 hours setting up a class, example that takes 10 minutes because it took all that time to blow all these things out.
Right.
And now it's just like, oh yeah, I'll just click here. This is.
Yeah, I'm looking at it. I'm setting up a workshop in a couple of weeks for teaching auditors some stuff about scanning, and I've got 20 odd Kali VMs that they can boot, and now I'm going to have some targets and Wi-Fi, all that stuff I got to build to bring with me. Holy crap! This will work over a terrible connection.
You could do it in the Uber on the way to the hotel.
Yeah,
kind of. Yeah.
So I mean, I'd love to work with any of you, and we can reach out after the show, and more than happy to go ahead and give you access to the platform and try it out. Because right now I'm also looking from feedback from experienced instructors like all of you guys are, so that way we get to know what else we can build. And as you can see, even within these few seconds we've launched Burp. It just pretty much feels like you're on your desktop. Like there's no difference.
You're just killing me here. I'm watching you set this up, and I'm like, oh yeah, I launched Burp. It's just like, oh yeah. I think I spent a day on that last year.
So, Vivek, I got to ask you, of all the pieces of this, what was the thing that was there was no way in hell we could have done it, and it was amazing when they pulled off implementing for your environment?
Great question.
Yeah.
So I think the most difficult, there was basically two different parts which I would say were very difficult. One was to create a custom lab environment, which is extremely affordable, because Pentester Academy, we hardly charge $39 a month, right? So we wanted to make sure that the platform was very affordable. So creating the platform, the network, kind of the service mesh and all of that from scratch, that was something very challenging, because we really wanted to make sure that this is something we can deliver at scale. The second part was, with Jeswin from our team worked on, was how do you go ahead and put in an entire desktop system into many of these containers, whether it's Kali, Ubuntu, or whatever, which is extremely lightweight, but still very efficient and works fantastically, like you're seeing right now. I mean, I'm on a call, we are running a web browser with a full-blown Kali, but you hardly see any lag. I'm in Singapore, by the way. The server I'm using right now is US East Coast. So I think these two components was what really took us a lot of time to get right.
Vivek, are you hosting all these labs in AWS?
So the best part really is that we can host them in any backend. So we have AWS, we have Google Cloud, and actually this one is on Linode.
Wow.
Yeah, so everything is decoupled. So what we've done is we've made sure, because when you run an attack defense lab, you never know which provider can take you down, right? They might be like, hey, we don't want you to run this kind of stuff on our infrastructure.
Right.
So we've completely decoupled, and that's the reason why we wanted our own platform. We didn't want to run like, Google, Kubernetes pods and all that. And actually, the more difficult labs cannot be run in a Docker environment. So let's say you want to teach somebody how to write rootkits, right? We have a couple of low-level classes as well. So then you would need a full-blown KVM VM, but you also need a desktop system which can quickly be exported back into the browser. And actually, we can run all of that. So a lot of our labs does use KVM at the back end. We are currently integrating Hyper-V-based backends as well. So you could see your Windows environment completely in the browser, just as fast as you're looking at right now.
So how long, I'm thinking more in terms of targets, how long would it how long would it take for you to set up, let's say, a dozen Windows XP and Vista servers that are out of the box, default settings primarily, and they're not tied to Active Directory?
So actually, I mean, once we have the images, AMIs, or, for example, QCOW format or whatever in KVM, to set up a new lab, the best thing is we have our own orchestrator. So once the images are in, you could create a new lab, a new configuration, actually in minutes. You just have to mention the lab networking in a JSON. It's more declarative syntax. And put that into a challenge, and it automatically picks up the images and creates the network.
Do you have the ability to set up VLANs or any type of quote unquote isolated LANs that are separated with some sort of firewall instance? I mean, can you emulate that type of thing?
Yeah, it's a very good question. So that is what we are trying to get probably ready by August, which is you can actually have layer 2 switching level control as an instructor. So that is going to be entirely built on a KVM environment with OpenSwitch and all that stuff.
Cool.
Yeah, and you could even put in pfSense components and everything. So currently in the public lab, we don't have that, but we are already doing internal tests and early private tests. But August, worst case, September timeframe, you'd actually see those labs go public.
Cool. All right, thanks.
But did you say you have the ability for somebody to pivot from one network to another from a multi-home system?
Yeah. So, I mean, some of our more difficult pivoting exercises. So we have one which is called Mega Mystery in here that actually has like, I think 6 different LAN segments you have to pivot into. So I don't know if you're able to see this network architecture here.
It's squiggly.
Yeah, that's even better. You can drag it around and make it wiggle. You can just kind of thrash it when you get frustrated.
Make it wiggle some more.
Now look what you made me do.
Vivek, what's that written in that's producing that diagram? Is that like in Angular or some kind of fancy web language?
So this is basically a JavaScript GUI-based framework.
Mm-hmm.
And what we do is from the backend, based on the network configuration, we actually just send back the JSON and it just renders it automatically.
Mm-hmm.
Next week onward, you'll actually also start seeing IP addresses and flag tags. So let's say this entire network with, I think this has a 3-level pivoting required to finish all the challenges. So this target would say flag 1, this would say flag 2. And as you enter the flags, it'll actually show you that you finished those flags right there. So you're hoping to expand this visualization to include IP addresses, flags, attacker movement, and all of that stuff over time.
I want this so much.
Now, so I have another question. Is the goal for each of these systems to just gain admin access, pop a shell, or do you have the ability to, plant Easter eggs and actually play a capture the flag, capture a particular something and hide it somewhere in the network?
Larry and I play find the Easter egg all the time.
Yeah. So we have flavors of both really. Interestingly, we are also baking in deception labs in there, so that while the attacker is actually doing something, you can also view what is doing. So to answer your question, so pop boxes, get shells, and along with that, Easter eggs, plant things, eventually even compete against different users. So envision this, that you and your competitor both can go, kind of head on against each other, and both of you get dropped into the same network, and then you can compete against each other for different flags. And once one of you captures a flag, the other can't get it. And then you can see a live scoreboard between, it's like a duel happening between 2 people or 2 teams.
Paul and Larry are going to want this in virtual reality,
Yeah.
So what about like red versus blue? Could you have one team trying to capture flags while the other is turning up the defenses as it goes?
Exactly. So that's what we are planning to launch along with the KVM in September is the blue team will get an access to all of the targets where you can actually like SSH in, or you get an SSH terminal right there. And then you're allowed to kind of like secure your services, change the configuration as you like, while the red team ends up getting the Kali instances or, the Ubuntu attacker instances, and they begin attacking after a delay or almost simultaneously. That's the whole plan.
Vivek, I have to ask about some of the limitations. It sounds like networking and storage you're providing. I would assume, this is a selfish question, audio and video doesn't come back into the browser, correct?
So that is actually a very good question. So looks like we might be able to do that. We are still testing it. So you can go ahead and put a software-based webcam or a software-based audio device onto the targets and actually stream a predetermined video. So what we wanted was, let's say someone exploits a box with Metasploit, then remotely they can take screenshots from the webcam, right? So looks like you can actually enable software-based webcam on a target and actually stream a constant video into it, which looks like someone working or someone doing something crazy. So that now when the attacker breaks into the box, he can run MetaPredator commands to go ahead and look at the webcam live, and you'd feel like you've actually attacked a real box.
I tell you what, you got someone that'll license that technology for doing for doing podcasts. After this segment, we'll compare notes.
I mean, our vision is, it's a bold statement. So, I'd probably prefer to kind of say that when it kind of eventually comes true. But hey, because this is a secure, closed space and you guys aren't broadcasting to the world. So I would almost go and say that, ideally the vision is to democratize, lab environment. So the whole idea is take all of this, build it, and then license it in a very affordable way to any training institute around the world who can white label it and use it as their own.
Well, and I mean, Doug and I both have looked at a lot of different CTF platforms, training platforms. I've never seen anything like this.
No, that's amazing.
Yeah, Vivek, you and your team have done a phenomenal job. I mean, just the design and consideration is astonishing.
Hell yeah! I mean, I was like,
the technology.
I keep saying I hate this because
yeah.
it's just it's like I've looked at stuff like this before, and they're going, well, for only $100,000, you'll be able to get started. You know, I'm like, you know, and what does that do exactly? Well, it gives you a login. Like, to what? You know, and they're like, well, it gives you login to a Windows command line and an XP. You know, I mean, this is great. It's so awesome, and it's like taking advantage of all this great stuff that's out there and putting it all in one place. And I keep hearing the word affordable, which I like a lot because my budget is in the affordable class.
So right now we are running a promo where the entire Pentester Academy platform with all our courses, all our videos, and 1,100 of these attack defense platforms is just $39 a month forever. I mean, if you sign up and
you heard it here first. $39 a month. Like, oh my God. I keep hearing other things. He keeps saying $39, and I keep hearing $39,000 an hour, and you know, but it's not. It's like,
Vivek, tell us a little bit about your classes on the platform that maybe step a little outside of security and cover skills that security professionals have to know, like programming, networking,
personal hygiene.
Yeah, things like personal hygiene. Yeah, social skills.
So personal hygiene, maybe some other platform, but yeah.
Come on, Vivek. You said it could do anything.
So one of the things you brought up a very good point. What we also have in here is, so let me give you an example. So we have actually offensive Python exercises so that if you wanted to kind of look at getting started. So I think Larry would have loved it if he was around. So we have a whole section where we have Scapy as well.
Yeah.
I know he does a lot of Scapy stuff. So I think I may have to quickly shut down 2 of the labs. So we've kind of put a concurrent limit on the number of labs any user can run.
Well, yeah, and that was the issue that distrotest.net ran into. They were covered in a Forbes article, and they by accident stress tested their network. And so they had they had to limit so much. So when I went to it today, I was numbered 29 in the queue before it could start my instance.
So 61.
Yeah. So like I totally get you have to limit.
I was 61 today on that queue.
Yeah.
So I was hating number
to
29.
Give you an example, Paul, what we are doing is we are integrating programming environments in here as well.
Yeah.
So you can actually do even GDB in the cloud. So I'll just show you the Wi-Fi one. So this is actually a full-blown IPython notebook, which is actually kind of delivered to you. The whole Jupyter environment is delivered. So you could go ahead, start the Jupyter lab, and all of this under 25 seconds of starting the lab. And here you go, your IPython environment where you could learn how to program. There are different tasks. We give you the solution and all of that stuff as well.
That's fantastic.
That's amazing. Yeah. I mean, that's an awesome thing.
Yeah. And what we're also doing is things like Docker. So what I've found is a lot of times security professionals, they may want to look at Docker security, but they've never done Docker basics. So all of that is also going to be possible in our KVM-based labs. Which is you could now run a Docker environment and start running Docker basic commands or starting containers and whatnot. There's one really cool thing I'd like to show you guys.
I like that, Vivek, because I truly believe that a lot more security tools, well, I've witnessed it today. When I first started with Docker years ago, I was like, everyone's going to build their security tools inside of a Docker container. And lo and behold, I'm starting to see that in more and more projects that are newer. When you can get the tool by itself, but they also have a Docker container that you can run it. And what I like to promote in our environment is like, hey, if you're writing a script or utility, you build a Docker container system around it because that makes it more portable. We can run it anywhere. It makes developing and testing that utility, even though it's a small utility, just so much easier. So I'm trying to get to the point where every piece of code that I write and touch, I'm deploying it inside of a Docker container.
People can learn it. So the other advantage of that is when people want to learn your utility or they want to learn your tool, being able to provide them with a Docker container means that they can quickly throw it up. I mean, even if that's not their production environment, they can quickly throw it up, practice with it, learn how it works, see what the limitations are, and then make a decision that's very educated.
In the webcast, Tarek was talking about Yara. and you can get a Docker container with Yara in it, point the Yara Docker container at a directory of malware, and run all your malware in that directory through Yara and run all the Yara rules through it.
There you go.
Awesome.
Right. And just to add on to that, guys, one of the dream projects I was actually planning as a free community project is envision all of these security tools as Docker containers, but alongside with that, also envision a simple vulnerable environment where you can test these tools against. So a community project like securitytools.com or whatever, where you can go in, you can select the security tool start, and then you have an environment where you have the tool available and a vulnerable system you can test it against so that you can quickly see how it works. And tool authors could end up actually providing both of these for the community because, hey, when they write the tool, they've already created an environment to test it, right? So it isn't going to be too much work for them just to put it out as a container as well.
And you can start building toolkits out of that as well, because you could start taking stuff like that, letting people evaluate, letting people rate, letting people test, and putting together what's the optimal toolkit for this particular scenario, and then you've got a whole collection of them and go, this is the one I think we should use. Oh wow, I feel
because
old.
a lot of people end up writing security tools, and if you see there isn't mass adoption of a lot of really good tools, really good gems in there, simply because you go to the web page, you have no clue what to use it against. So authors do a really good job building it, but a very poor job telling people how to use it or giving them a quick environment, where they can immediately try to figure out like, hey, okay, I run this is the option, immediate gratification, and then that goes into your tool set forever, right?
The phrase works on my machine seems appropriate here.
Yeah. So, I mean...
And hey, I'm guilty of it too. Right? It works on my machine. I don't know what you're talking about, right?
It's running here.
Yeah, it worked in my house. Why isn't that working for you?
Exactly. And I think tool authors should be doing this because I've seen a lot of great tools. Nobody uses them because either it's poor documentation or no quick way to figure out like what to do. One little quick thing is we also have full terminal access. So it is like a T-Shark lab, and you can immediately get launched into like a Linux terminal. And now within this, you could pretty much like run just like you would. So we could do like a ls-a. You could run like T-Shark basically, on the interface or whatever you wanted to do. So right now we aren't permitting it, but in the other labs that we do. So this is another example of like you getting a terminal in the browser.
Vivek, in a kind of closing out this segment, security for your platform, if you could speak to that, because you've built an entire ecosystem that are largely going to be used by hackers,
right?
And you must be very concerned about the security. You just showed a Linux terminal coming up, and I remember back in the days when we used to have shell servers and all the heinous things that my friend Bob used to do on shell servers, right? It just kind of reminds me of that. So if you could speak, if you could, for a few minutes about the security of the platform.
You're very right. I think, one of the reasons why we did decide to build a lot of things in a custom way was so that we could have very fine-grained control on the security. So now Docker itself, of course, gives some level of isolation. Of course, there are breakouts and everything available. So what we've actually done is, firstly, we've made sure we've picked up all the security features that Docker has to offer. So as an example, we use the Docker remap facility where you can go ahead and remap it to sub-UIDs and sub-GIDs so that the containers really run as an extremely low-privileged user. Then over and above that, the entire networking is actually done using a kind of a service mesh. I don't know if you guys have heard of Cilium. So that internally ends up using things like eBPF and XDP and all of that, and allows us to really go ahead and deploy security at scale at a networking level as well. So we can actually create software-defined networking rules to, ban certain kind of traffic. Or if all of a sudden we see like a breakout happening, then it immediately goes ahead and, sends out an alert to us saying, hey, looks like the traffic from this little kind of, containerized environment is actually overflowing. Then, we've gone ahead and added our own little, so we use Sysdig. Most people may have looked at Sysdig. So we deploy Sysdig. Yeah, we deploy Sysdig monitor on our servers so that we can look at like what is really happening. to be honest, security, is a process. All of us know that. So what I try to do is make sure that look at Docker change logs every single day and figure out is there any new security feature we can incorporate? I wouldn't say it's 100% secure. Someone will always find a way to break out and do things. But yeah, by adopting some of these newer technologies, especially the ones which are using eBPF, XDP, and all of that, we're trying to make sure that we have an extremely good monitoring process and a lockdown process available if something does go wrong. One of the corollaries also is that we are learning a lot, and this is allowing us to build our defense labs, because if you look at it in today's modern era, being able to look at every single thing which happens down at the container level using a combination of tools does allow a defender to get a lot of information. Of course, at times too much information. So we are learning as we're kind of going along the process. So yeah, Docker security features. We have our own little custom tools which are monitoring traffic and sending it to an L.
Vivek, I'm glad to hear you say you're using Sysdig. They're a sponsor of the network as well. So glad to know that we both looked at that technology and thought it was good. So that's good reassurance there. Yeah.
So I think Sysdig is really good. Sysdig Monitor is really good. The interesting thing is, and maybe in a couple of months, I'll send you a note if I can come back on the show as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm personally, working on an interesting project using eBPF and XDP and all of that to see if we could build in more interesting capabilities from a security monitoring perspective, which currently Sysdig and some of the tools don't provide. Hoping to even do a talk in a couple of conferences.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I love it. Vivek, that was extremely impressive, and I don't often say that, but
yeah, no, he's never says that.
I look at a lot of technology. We do a lot of briefings and we look at technology, and I a few times have been impressed with this type of technology.
Yeah, a lot coming from you.
No, I mean that is really, really impressive. Dr. Doug White blesses it. Doug's literally drooling.
I am. I want it more. I want it more than a Tesla X. So.
He wants it really bad, more than a Tesla.
Well, maybe not.
I'd love to reach out to all of you, after the show, and if there is anything we could immediately pilot with, because as I said, I want top instructors like you guys to give us feedback of what else you'd like to see, what other kind of labs that we can build, because there's only so much that we understand and we know. So if we can get that intel, then we can add all of that. And as I said, we have a flexible licensing, so we'd love for any of you to use our labs in your classes and even white label it. You don't even have to use it as Attack Defense. You could use it as DougLabs.com.
No, I want to. That's a request I get from my instructors all the time. Is they want, what's the environment? Is it pre-built? Do I have to build it? How much time? And it's wow, if I had this, I can go. Here you go. Teach whatever you want. It's right here, ready to roll.
Awesome.
Vivek,
it's you have my $39 a month. I can tell you that, without question. I'm sure many of our listeners do. Totally worth it. So where do I go? And is there a code if I want to sign up for Pentester Academy and gain access to these labs?
So right now we basically are running our kind of final Pentester Academy promo, and what I mean by that is, providing these labs, of course, does force us to increase the price a bit. So
totally.
You could just go to pentesteraacademy.com. We have the online labs description right here. So one of the additional things I wanted to mention is we have unlimited lab time. So basically, you could run lab 24/7. You're allowed to run one lab at a time, but you can run it for as long as you like. And if you go to pricing, we are running the limited promo right now. And this would probably end in the next 7 to 10 days.
No.
Right now, $39.
Oh, no.
And you lock in the price. So, if you pay $39 right now and you continue your subscription, you can have this and all the updates that we plan to put out literally forever for just $39 a month.
That's fantastic. Vivek, thank you so much for appearing on Paul's Security Weekly. I don't know there's much more to say other than really, really awesome. I'm assuming you answered the 5 questions before because we're over time because we're just so excited about what you've built. Vivek, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me on the show.
With that, we'll take a short break. Come back. Bryson Bortz from Scythe. Stay tuned.